Before we begin this transformative journey into the depths of the psyche, please subscribe to our channel, like this content, and share it with those ready to awaken their inner abundance. Your engagement helps us reach more souls seeking authentic transformation. The Shadow's gift, Dr. Elena Morrow, stood before the ancient mirror in her study, watching not her reflection, but the darkness that seemed to move behind her eyes. As a Jungian analyst, she understood that what we resist in ourselves becomes the very force that blocks our abundance. The shadow, that rejected aspect of our personality, holds the key to our greatest treasures. Every person carries within them an unlived life, she whispered to her reflection, recalling Jung's profound insight. Elena had spent years helping others, yet she remained blind to her own shadow. Her fear of success, disguised as humility, had kept abundance at arm's length. The mirror showed her what she had refused to see, her own magnificent potential buried beneath layers of self-denial. That night, Elena began the sacred practice of shadow work, writing letters to the parts of herself she had banished. In embracing her ambitious nature, her desire for recognition, and her hunger for material comfort, aspects she had deemed unspiritual, she took the first step toward wholeness. The shadow, when integrated, becomes the foundation of authentic power. The Anima's whisper Marcus had built an empire through force and logic, yet felt empty despite his material success. His anima, the feminine aspect of his psyche, had been silenced by years of rigid masculine conditioning. In dreams, she appeared as various women, sometimes nurturing, sometimes fierce, always calling him toward balance. The breakthrough came during a meditation retreat. As Marcus sat in silence, he felt the gentle whisper of his inner feminine. True abundance flows like water, not through force, but through receptivity. He realized that his relentless pushing had created resistance. In every area of his life, his anima taught him the art of allowing, of creating space for abundance to flow naturally. Marcus began incorporating contemplative practices into his business life. He listened more deeply to his intuition, honored the cycles of rest and action, and discovered that when he aligned with his complete nature, both masculine and feminine, opportunities multiplied effortlessly. The anima had revealed the secret. Abundance requires both the strength to pursue and the wisdom to receive. The collective unconscious speaks. Maria, a young artist struggling financially, discovered Jung's concept of the collective unconscious during a moment of despair. She realized that her limiting beliefs about money and creativity weren't truly hers. They were inherited patterns from generations past, archetypal stories that had shaped her family's relationship with abundance. Through active imagination, Maria descended into the depths of the collective unconscious. There, she encountered the wise old woman archetype, who revealed that scarcity was merely one story among infinite possibilities. "Child," the crone spoke, "you have been living your great-grandmother's fear, not your own truth." Maria began to consciously choose which archetypal energies to embody. Instead of the starving artist, she called upon the creative magician, the one who transforms ideas into gold. As she shifted her identification from scarcity to abundance, archetypes, her external reality began to mirror this internal transformation. Commissions flowed, galleries called, and prosperity followed her newfound archetypal alignment. Transcendent Function Dr. James Chen faced a profound paradox. He was simultaneously drawn to spiritual poverty and material abundance. This inner conflict had paralyzed him for years until he discovered Jung's concept of the Transcendent Function, the psyche's ability to hold opposites in creative tension. Rather than choosing one side over the other, James learned to embrace both his spiritual nature and his material desires. Through meditation and dream work, he discovered that this tension itself was generative. The transcendent function emerged as a third way, a path that honored both spirit and matter without betraying either. James began viewing money as sacred energy, a tool for spiritual expression rather than its enemy. His investment firm became a vehicle for conscious capitalism, funding companies that served both profit and purpose. The transcendent function had taught him that true abundance transcends the false dichotomy between spiritual and material wealth, revealing them as two faces of the same divine coin. The individuation process, Sarah's journey toward financial freedom, had stalled because she was living everyone else's definition of success. Her parents wanted her to be a doctor, society expected her to accumulate possessions, and her friends measured worth by external achievements. Jung's concept of individuation, becoming who you truly are, became her compass toward authentic abundance. The individuation process demanded that Sarah separate from collective expectations and discover her unique path. Through journaling and introspection, she uncovered her authentic gifts and genuine desires. She realized that her soul's calling toward environmental activism wasn't incompatible with prosperity. It was the key to it. As Sarah aligned her career with her individuation process, abundance flowed naturally. Her environmental consulting firm attracted clients who valued both profit and planet. She had discovered Jung's secret. When we become truly ourselves, we attract the abundance that is authentically ours. Individuation is the ultimate abundance practice because it aligns us with our essential nature. The compensation principle, Robert's obsession with positive thinking, had backfired spectacularly. The harder he tried to maintain optimism about his failing business, the worse things became. Jung's principle of compensation revealed why. The psyche naturally balances one-sided attitudes with their opposites. Instead of fighting his pessimistic thoughts, Robert began to honor them as valuable information. His fears about failure contained practical wisdom about market conditions and business strategy. By integrating both optimism and realism, he found a middle path that acknowledged challenges while maintaining hope. The compensation principle taught Robert that sustainable abundance requires psychological balance. His business recovered when he stopped forcing positivity and began making decisions from a place of integrated awareness. True prosperity emerges not from denying life's difficulties, but from dancing skillfully with both light and shadow, success and failure, hope and concern. The archetypal entrepreneur Lisa had always dreamed of starting her own company, but felt blocked by fears and self-doubt. Her breakthrough came when she realized she was trying to be an entrepreneur using only her personal ego. Jung's teaching about archetypes showed her a more powerful approach, embodying the archetypal entrepreneur. Through visualization and role-playing, Lisa connected with the timeless archetype of the merchant, the innovator, the risk-taker. She studied the myths and stories of successful entrepreneurs throughout history, drawing upon their collective wisdom. This archetypal connection gave her access to confidence and skills that transcended her individual limitations. As Lisa embodied the entrepreneur archetype more fully, her business decisions became more inspired and effective. She had tapped into a source of wisdom and energy that belonged not just to her personal psyche, but to the collective human experience of creating and trading. The archetype became her guide, mentor, and source of unstoppable entrepreneurial power. The wounded healer, David's financial struggles, had deep roots in childhood trauma around money and worth. Jung's archetype of the wounded healer showed him that his pain could become his greatest asset. Rather than hiding his past struggles with poverty, David began to share his story authentically. The transformation was profound. David's vulnerability and honesty attracted clients who resonated with his journey. His financial coaching practice flourished because people trusted someone who had walked their path. His wounds, when consciously embraced and transformed, became the source of his abundance. The wounded healer archetype revealed a fundamental truth. Our deepest struggles, when integrated and transformed, become our greatest gifts. David's story of financial recovery became a beacon for others, creating both meaning and prosperity. He had learned that authentic abundance often emerges from our most challenging experiences, alchemically transformed into wisdom and service. The sacred marriage, Alexandra's relationship with money, mirrored her relationship with love. Both were characterized by push-pull dynamics and self-sabotage. Jung's concept of the hieros gamos, sacred marriage, offered a solution, the union of opposites within the psyche that creates wholeness and generative power. Through inner work, Alexandra recognized the war between her inner masculine, which pushed for achievement, and inner feminine, which feared being consumed by ambition. She began a process of internal negotiation, seeking harmony between these aspects. The sacred marriage required honoring both the drive to succeed and the need for balance. As Alexandra integrated her internal opposites, her external world reflected this harmony. Money flowed more easily because she was no longer fighting herself. Relationships deepened because she was whole. The sacred marriage had taught her that true abundance emerges from internal unity, when all parts of ourselves are honored and integrated. The alchemical transformation. Thomas viewed his financial setbacks as failures until he discovered Jung's fascination with alchemy. The ancient alchemists weren't just trying to turn lead into gold, they were mapping the psychological process of transformation. Thomas realized his struggles were alchemical material, raw substances waiting to be refined into wisdom. Each financial challenge became a stage in the alchemical process. Nigredo, the black stage of dissolution; albedo, the white stage of purification; and rubedo, the red stage of integration. Thomas learned to work with his difficulties as an alchemist works with base metals, patiently, skillfully, with faith in the transformative process. The alchemical perspective revolutionized Thomas's relationship with adversity. Instead of avoiding challenges, he welcomed them as opportunities for psychological gold-making. His business began to thrive because he had developed the alchemist's greatest skill, the ability to find the treasure hidden within every difficulty. The sage's investment, Catherine, had always been generous, but struggled with receiving. Jung's study of wisdom traditions revealed that the sage archetype understands abundance as circulation, not accumulation. True wealth flows through us, not to us. Catherine began to see herself as a steward of prosperity rather than its owner. This shift in perspective transformed Catherine's relationship with money. She invested not just financially, but energetically in relationships, knowledge, experiences that would compound over time. She understood that the sage's wealth lies in wisdom, connections, and the ability to create value for others. Catherine's consulting practice exploded as she embodied the sage archetype more fully. Clients sought her not just for her expertise, but for her wisdom about sustainable success. She had learned the sage's secret. When we invest in becoming wise, abundant opportunities naturally follow. The greatest return on investment is always the investment in our own development, the return to wholeness one. Year after beginning her Jungian journey, Dr. Eleanor Morrow stood again before her mirror. The reflection showed not just her face, but the integrated whole she had become. Her shadow was no longer a source of shame, but of strength. Her anima whispered not of what she lacked, but of what was possible. The archetypes had become living, allies rather than unconscious patterns. Elena's practice had flourished beyond her wildest dreams, but more importantly, she had found peace with prosperity. She understood now that true abundance is not about having more, but about becoming whole. Jung's ancient wisdom had revealed the deepest secret. We attract from the outside what we have integrated within. The mirror reflected back not just Elena, but the self, Jung's term for the integrated totality of the personality. In finding herself, she had found her abundance. In accepting all aspects of her nature, she had attracted all forms of prosperity. The journey to abundance, she realized, is ultimately the journey home to ourselves. As Elena prepared to teach others this path, she smiled at the profound simplicity of Jung's wisdom. Your task is not to seek for love, abundance, or happiness, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. The mirror had shown her the truth. Abundance was never outside waiting to be found. It was always within, waiting to be recognized and expressed. The ancient wisdom was simple but profound. Do this every day, become more fully yourself, and abundance will naturally follow.